Hello everybody, it's Tuesday the 9th of February 2021 and obviously we're in lockdown with coronavirus, COVID-19, and today marks a really special time for me. It's 2 years since I was saved out of New Age spirituality and become a born-again Christian, born-again believer, and that's what I wanted to come on today and just talk about. I've been wanting to do this for a long time now, the best part of 2 years really, but to be honest with you, the last 2 years has flown by, and I've been using this time to do a lot of studying, research and getting into theology properly and things like that to understand exactly what happened to me 2 years ago now today. So if you can hear, I'm in my car, it's freezing today, it's quite frosty, so I've got the heater on low, hopefully that doesn't interfere with the sound. But I want to go into the backstory of this a little bit. So obviously for uploading purposes, I'm going to pop this on YouTube. I'm going to try and not go on for too long, but I do want to get a little bit of backstory in so that people can really understand where I've come from with this. So I've always believed in God. I've always believed in what some people might call spirituality or consciousness, that kind of thing, and I can't remember a time when I didn't really. I've had angelic presence throughout all my life. I feel like I've always been very blessed and very protected, long story short. When I was younger, I remember at a very early age I got into music and drums, and I discovered a band through one of my friends, a band called Tool, from Los Angeles, California, and I remember when I first discovered them, it's like that kind of first time that you have a pint of beer or a cigarette or something. It doesn't make sense, it doesn't really add up, but yeah, you're hooked. There's something in it that hooks you, and that's what happened with the band Tool. I absolutely kind of fell for them and got really into the whole package of what they sell, kind of thing, which is all about kind of spirituality, metaphysics, occultism, that type of thing. And I become obsessed with the band, and the drummer I thought was fantastic, and I still regard him as one of the better drummers out there in the world today. I think he's a fantastic musician. But basically what I've since come to learn is that the Bible classes this as idolatry. Anything that we idolize or anything that we put on such a high pedestal above God, of course, is idolatry. So at an early age, this was what happened. I'd become kind of hooked on this band Tool, which led, it was like a kind of gateway, if you like, a gateway drug or a doorway to all of this spirituality stuff and occultism and things like that. And long story short, I just got hooked into all of this kind of thing, and I become fascinated with it because it spoke to me on such a deep level. It spoke to me on such a soul level. All of the lyrics of Tool and what they speak about really spoke to me. It's all about spirituality and how that this life isn't all that there is, and there's we're eternal, and all of this pain is an illusion, all of that kind of thing. So for me at that time, I guess that kind of really spoke to me from a God point of view. I thought, yeah, these guys are kind of singing about God, they're talking about what God is, there's more to life, that kind of thing. Little did I know, I've come to later realise that it's actually demonic, I'm afraid to say. It's led by dark spirits, and this is what's going on in the world. There's a spiritual warfare going on between light and dark. And so that was the start of it for me. Now I started drums at a young age. I started playing drums at about 13, and that was my first kind of interest in life and my first passion and spark, that kind of thing. And sorry if the sun's shining through a bit. And yeah, it led to other things going on in life. And initially, I think I probably started out life as wanting to be some kind of a rock star before. When COVID times didn't exist and we didn't have a clue that they were going to happen, I thought I wanted to be a rock star. I thought I wanted to One of my earliest influences, thanks to my dad, was Matt Sorum, a drummer, Guns N' Roses drummer, and that was what I thought I wanted to be. Then I had a very significant spiritual awakening when I was 23, and I turned 23, and I remember at the time I was telling people that I can't wait to turn 23 years old, and everybody was like, why 23? And I couldn't actually put my finger on it, but obviously intuitively on a deep level I knew something significant was going to take place. And I did. I was leaving a party one night with some friends, and I was coming home. I was actually relatively close to my house, and I had quite a profound spiritual awakening. Still trying to work this one out, still trying to understand where it come from, but having become a born again Christian now, I've since come to believe that 99.9% of all of these experiences are dark and demonic, or can be demonic led. And what they do is they give us the idea that we're having a godly experience, but in fact what's happening is we're under attack, or we're being influenced. So this changed my life when I was 23. This changed my life, and kind of overnight I realized, and maybe this is clearly the positive from it, but overnight I realized that I no longer wanted to be this kind of egoic rock star on stage, like with my sticks and like, look at me with a huge drum set, like look at me. Overnight that changed, and my ego died, and then basically, long story short, led me into kind of a whole world. I was into it before then, but a whole world of kind of anything from Eastern mysticism to Buddhism, to occultism, to spirituality, to yoga. I really got into yoga at one point. So everything but Christianity really is what I was involved in. Then I'm just going to kind of skip to the chase now and get on with it. And really, I going back over 10 years ago, I got a knock on the door from Jehovah's Witnesses. As the Jehovah's Witnesses do, bless their souls, they knock on the door. They're very diligent with their ministry and their evangelism, and they knock on the door. And I befriended an elderly couple. I won't name names, but I befriended an elderly couple. And now, as I look back in hindsight, because I think we can all agree on one thing, hindsight is a very powerful tool. We don't understand what's happening at the time, but when we look back at things, we can understand what's going on. Long story short, God was using these Jehovah's Witness people to soften my heart to the Bible, because in my experiences, when I've listened to all kinds of testimonies from people that have become Christian, they don't become Christian overnight. Very rarely do people just like become born again Christians. Like, it can happen, I guess, and I'm sure it has happened. I mean, it happened to me in terms of, which I'm going to get to in a minute, the instantaneous act of becoming a born again Christian, but the leading up process has to be accounted for, so you've got all of the process of what's happening leading up to this event. So Jehovah's Witnesses befriended me, and I got into it. I went to their kingdom halls, and I went to all of their day events, and they have these long day events, but all the while through, it never added up. It never quite added up with the Jehovah's Witnesses. They never had a good defense for what they believed, which is what Jehovah's Witnesses, which is what Christians should have as Christian believers. We should have a good defense for what we believe. But yeah, they never had a good answer for what they believed, in my opinion. And often they would get a little bit ratty with you when you give them a good question. And they didn't believe in soul. Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in soul or spirit, and they believe Jesus is Archangel Michael, and they don't believe in anything life after death, which actually, when you study the scriptures and the Holy Bible, the Bible talks quite clearly about a spirit and a soul and heaven and hell, all of these places. So it didn't add up. It really didn't add up. But I studied with these guys, and I kept going with them, really, and but it didn't add up. It didn't make sense to me. So eventually I was becoming softened to the word, and I started to do some research on it. And one night, I remember, which I want to include in this, one night I had a very dark spiritual attack, which I've later come to realise was a demonic attack. And I was reading a book called The Great Controversy by Ellen G. White, And this book talks about the relationship between Satan and Jesus, God and the devil. And basically, I was in bed in the early hours of the morning, and I was reading this book, and it kind of I heard a noise on the driveway, and it dragged me in. Long story short, this ended up being a spiritual attack, because for the first and only time in my life I actually had an anxiety attack, a panic attack. And I remember I had to walk out onto the landing of my house upstairs, and I was breathing rapidly. It was like I just ran like a 26-mile marathon and some, but the anxiety just went through me from head to toe, and scared me off, really scared me off the Word of God and the Bible. And this is what it did. This is what it did to me. And these are all very, very profound experiences that I've had that have led up to this. So the way I see this now is that what that attack did was it actually scared me off the Bible. It scared me off the Word of God, and took me off track of where I was heading, which was becoming Christian. And that really was we're going back maybe 10 years ago now. That really just put me off for quite a significant amount of time, for quite a few years. So the enemy did a good job, certainly did a good job, because it really fripped me, it really scared me. It was a spiritual attack that put me off the Bible, to the point where the Bible then, I was using an NWT translation, which is frowned upon, but I used to look at this book and I used to think of the Bible as like some kind of Pandora's box that shouldn't be opened, and would be dangerous to people. It became really unusual for me, but I definitely strayed away from the Bible and what the Bible meant. Anyway, fast forwarding a little bit, I'm just trying to get it in sync of the right time. About 2016, I guess it was, I started work as a support worker for a community centre, and I met a foreign lady, a Japanese woman, during this time. It was best part of 2 years, and I ended up, I was meant to be going to a place called Bhutan in the Himalayas, which is a beautiful little kind of green, completely very clean and green, basically, one of the happiest nations on the planet apparently. And I chose not to go in the end, because my partner, who was Japanese, who I was with at the time, got refused a visa to come back in the country. So I ended up choosing, we're going to about 2018 now it was, I ended up going to Japan for 3 months. And during this time we travelled around, we went around all the temples, all of the Japanese things. It was the most amazing time. But what I found was, during this period, because as I'd been studying Christianity all this time leading up to this point, what I found was my urge, that the enemy was fighting with God, really, to get me deeper into New Age spirituality. So here I find myself dating a Japanese woman in Japan at all the Buddhist temples, and I just had this kind of urge at this time to get into tarot cards more. I mean, I'd always been into oracle cards and tarot cards, but I actually, because I was out there for 3 months, I wasn't working, so we had all day to ourselves. So some days we were just chilling and reading and stuff. So I ordered like some of the they're the classic tarot cards now, I forget what they're called, one of the traditional classic tarot decks. I ordered those, and I got some books on Kabbalah and some dream interpretations, and I started to really get into deeper spirituality things, New Age, dark things, more so than ever. But it was quite fascinating, because this was just calling on me to dive deeper into this New Age spirituality, which I'll leave for you to find out a little bit more about. But I'm trying to get it in order of what's happened here. So I got more sucked into all of this New Age stuff, and it was, looking back in hindsight, really not the right direction to be taken, for sure. And there I was in Japan with this lady, and I believe I started to get into Kundalini yoga as well, which is breath exercises and deep trance breathing and things like that. So how I remember it was pulling me away. It was pulling me away from God and from the Bible and Scripture, and it was delving me deeper into all of this New Age spirituality. I came back from Japan, and I took another job support working for a company, and it was a terrible experience overall. The company were really quite poor, weren't really investing in the workers. One of my worst working experiences. I've been quite lucky with work over the years, but one of my lesser experiences really. And I remember at the time, this was really where it was climaxing, and it was all building up. The Jehovah's Witnesses were still knocking. I was still going to the Kingdom Halls. I was still researching the Bible and things like that. But again, it never made sense to me. But I was supporting this one guy, this one fella, I won't name him, who was having some issues from his past, and he had, learning difficulties and disability, and he was high functioning autistic. And this chap would talk about three things. He would talk about politics, Tottenham Hotspur, his football team, and the Bible and Christianity. So with the other two, not being a Tottenham fan, being a Liverpool fan, when he started talking about Spurs, wasn't really my thing to be too interested in, but I'd always listen to him and talk about football. Politics went over my head. I've never been interested in politics. So when he started talking about politics, again, quickly I was bored with it. But then he would get onto the Bible, and he would start talking about Christianity. And as I say, this guy was high functioning autistic, so he would talk very quickly, and he had a fantastic brain. I remember one shift, he told me what day of the year I was born, just from the year and the date of my birthday. It was fantastic. And so he would start talking about Christianity and the Bible. And this is where it all started to build up and climax, because I was having many attacks from the enemy. Things were starting to go wrong in my life, actually, and this is what happened a couple of years leading up to being saved and born again. Excuse me, I've got drinking plenty of liquid today. Things were starting to go wrong, generally speaking. I was trained as a hypnotherapist and a therapist, and I was counselling people kind of thing on a part-time basis, but I was getting more concerned about the wrong things like money and business states of things, and less about the service of people. Even though I'd made a commitment in my early years when I had that spiritual experience to be of service to people and to counsel people, but I was getting more concerned about things like money and that type of thing. So I was working with this guy, supporting him, and he lived at the top of a block of flats, so we had to walk up and go and see him. And one shift I was counselling him through a previous trauma experience that he'd had, and I remember he got quite emotional, and I knew that he was Christian and a believer, and I just said to him one time, if what would Jesus do right now? What would God do? I said he would be forgiving, wouldn't he? I said he would be learning to love and to forgive this person, and to put the things that they've done to you in the past behind, and to forgive and to forget what's happened, because he obviously had this thing, and somebody with learning disabilities finds it hard to overcome these things. And it was that weekend, going back 2 years ago, where God really, really put his foot on the accelerator pedal. I remember I was just at home that weekend. It was a Saturday, Sunday, and I was due to come back on the Monday, but everything went wrong with the work. Things fell through, and I had a couple of attacks, which meant that had a bit of a falling out with the management, etc. But that weekend, I went home and I just researched Christianity. Like, I really went to town on it. I started watching YouTube videos. I started looking at articles, blogs, everything. Basically for like two full days, I just researched Christianity, which I'd never done before. My interests lied in spirituality and all of the fancy things that seem very alluring and desiring, but had nothing really to do with Christianity or Jesus and the Bible. But this weekend I went to town on it, and I really looked into things, and I can't remember exactly what time it was, but I remember I was just in my room, and just very quickly leading up to this experience, what I had, for the best part of 2 years, I'd seen angel numbers, what we call numerology, and in New Age spirituality, it's synchronistic numbers or numerology, and 555 was what I'd been seeing. Fives, the number 5. And as this led up to this experience that I had, I knew something seriously big was going to happen in my life. I knew something major was going to take place, to the point where I started to get concerned whether I was going to be injured, or somebody from my family was going to be injured, or it started to get quite concerning for me, actually, and I didn't know what was going to happen. But so yeah, I'd seen these numbers, and something was warning me. This angelic presence was warning me that what I'm leading up to is going to take place. Then back to this weekend, I'm researching Christianity, I'm looking at blogs, and I'm in my room, and I just have this absolutely amazing experience where I encounter Jesus. I'm absolutely stone cold sober, bearing in mind, I mean, even as a New Age spirituality, spiritualist, or somebody from New Age spirituality, I hadn't been drinking much alcohol or doing any drugs or anything like that for a long time, because my beliefs that tied into all of this was like to have a holistic lifestyle and a clean body, to do yoga, to drink lots of water, as I'm still doing now. I quit smoking back in 2016, so just to prove that I wasn't under any influence whatsoever of alcohol, drugs, or any mind-altering state of substance whatsoever. I'm on Google on my laptop, I'm researching things. And I recall I closed my eyes, I'm sat in my room and I close my eyes, and I see Jesus come in on the clouds. He's on these clouds. They're very dark, moody clouds. They're very stormy. But he's just stood there in the midst of this like huge, what I best describe as like a really very moody thunderstorm. And he's got these 2 swirling dark clouds either side of him. I didn't see any features of the face, but undeniably it's Jesus. And he's in like a long white robe, and I was just absolutely convicted in that moment. I was born again. I